Good. Cecilia, what a pleasure to meet up, and thank you for joining us at Marsec 20 Plus. Look, what we'd like to do in the next 10 minutes is just give people an insight into the kind of the people behind MACN, and first of all, starting off with you. I met you sort of about a decade ago at Maersk. So kind of tell us what inspired you to leave the sanctuary of Maersk and dedicate your life to maritime anti-corruption.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so thank you for having me. I mean, I have a true passion for collective action, and I do think that a lot of issues can be solved if we are joining forces and start working in silos. So I have a legal background working with Maersk as a compliance officer, and putting that anti-corruption compliance program lens on, we'll be more successful in tackling corruption if we do it together. And that was kind of what triggered the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network from the beginning, because it was really about, if you have captains in a room and you're gonna ask them to take a firm stand on tackling corruption, there are three questions that you directly get back. And that is, what's competition doing about this? If everybody else says yes and we are the only one who says no, how is that going to affect my working environment, and how is that going to affect my company? What are governments doing about this agenda, right? They're the ones who are corrupt, or they're the ones who are putting very strict regulations. How are they supporting people frontline on the ground who are ultimately faced with these risks and these challenges? And then the overarching question is, can we really change things? Something is embedded. How do you change for the better, without retaliation, without risk, without punishment? And again, putting the legal hat on again, if you're going to be successful in a company to have an effective anti-corruption compliance program, you need to be able to respond to those questions, because those questions will help the frontline to believe in your efforts, the efforts that you're trying to push internally. And that was the background for how MACN got started. Can we as an industry tackle this issue rather than only working in silos? And that was the background back in 2011, as you said. We were 8 companies in the first meeting, and we are over 140 companies today.
Congratulations! That is stellar growth, and very mirrors the same philosophy that we have over here at CSO Alliance. So there's so much that you could kind of concentrate on. How have you decided, and where have you focused? What's the sort of process? Do you sort of do it bit by bit, or how, just explain a methodology? Where are you really focusing at the moment?
Yeah, so MSN operates in 3 legs, which is important. The first one is what we call capability building, and that is really helping the industry to progress on a good ethical journey. So we have companies, we don't vet and we don't certify companies. I think that's a very important step for us, that we have companies who are front drivers who worked on tackling corruption for many, many years, and we have companies who are starting their journey. And a part of our mandate is to really help companies so we come to a level playing field. So we develop tools, anything from fit for purpose e-learnings to risk assessment to policies, trying to help companies to get started and get moving, right? Because only then we can really work as an industry to tackle this. And then we have our collective action program, which is really about, I think, where we're most known outside the industry and where we get most recognition. And that is around how we tackle issues with maritime corruption in countries. And our methodology there is quite clear. It's not about naming and shaming. It's really about finding constructive dialogues with governments across the globe and create what we call, the public-private partnership module or the multi-stakeholder module, which means that everybody needs to sit around the table. Because you tend, as humans, you tend to point fingers at someone who's not in the room, right? So that's why our collective action program focused both on different players in the industry. So we have everyone from a cargo owner, ship management, P&I clubs, port agent, flag registers in our value chain, and then bridging that conversation over to the government. Have the governments in this where there are high risk of corruption, having them to be convinced that working with the private sector will also be good for their side, for their priorities, right? It's about linking it to the national strategies around trade or ease of doing business. And that is how you create a constructive dialogue. And that's how we've also been able to create some of the results we have in MACN.
That's absolutely fascinating methodology, and part of your success is your team. I've met Vivek and Martin in Copenhagen, and obviously you. So it's obviously people with passion and purpose, which I think you do beautifully. But also, I guess it's sort of engaging ports and shipping. That's very much what this conference is about. Every session we have ports and we have shipping, and we're coming together to fight a common threat, be it cyber, be it physical, be it fraud, corruption, obviously with you guys. But have you got any sort of standout successes that you guys are really proud of, that you're seeing coming through and working?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that, we have been able to measure that our work has concluded and resulted in improvements in the operating environment. And if you speak to the industry, that's everything that counts, right? Is it easier to get my vessel in and out? Am I less exposed to risks calling these ports than I was previously? Have I created a safer working environment for my captains, right? So it both goes back to efficiency as well as it goes back to safety, right? So some of the excesses we've involved in a collective action in working in Argentina, where we have measured that the corrupt demands has been reduced by over 90%. So this is something that's been so ingrained practices that we've been able to change, work with the government, and now we see the ship owners going into these ports with up to 90% reduction of corrupt demands. We've also, in the more difficult places such as Nigeria and Ukraine, established local help desks where our members can come in and they can get advice both directly with the authorities or with our local partners, where they can get advice. What is the potential risk with this? How do I face this? And specifically in Nigeria, we have a great relationship with the government. So they are also coming in and making prompt solutions that suits the industry. So the ships are going out, even if there is an issue, they're going out of that port with the same time frames as other ports in the trade market, and they are not faced with retaliation, and they dare to escalate these challenges. So if they're faced with a corrupt demand, they can escalate it, and it gets promptly handled. So that, I think, in results in the operating environment, I'm very proud of, and also getting the private and public sector to talk to each other, so we come to solutions that kind of like is attractive for both parties, right?
No, that's fascinating. And as we sort of the last few minutes, I guess the key question is sort of what next? I mean, you've got a very good sort of slug of owners there. I guess you're opening a dialogue with ports. What's sort of next on your agenda? What's the next target?
Well, increasing MACN's footprint across the globe, being more present in countries and working very solution focused, and that's of course includes the ports and the terminals as well, that they are part of this trade value chain. So looking at building a more expanded dialogue in these countries, also including countries we're not working on today, finding solutions, maybe even learning from the countries we've worked in today where we had a result. Can we actually get a result quicker because we know more, we are more firm in our methodology, and we have a bigger group of stakeholders now than maybe when we started in some of the countries a few years ago. We now represent close to 50% of the world's tonnage, and with 140 global companies, we really have an industry voice. And this is where, the more companies to support this approach, the less of a likelihood of retaliation or punishment, because it's getting into an industry voice, an industry norm on how we want to do ocean trade and port operations, right? So I think that, there's a saying, the more the merrier, but I really think here it is really important that companies are joining forces and taking this as an industry approach, because that only then we can really make resilient and sustainable changes. Sorry.
Cecilia, that is an immaculate 9 minutes 52 seconds. And really, what I want to sort of really say is a sincere thank you. There are about 80 ports registered on the event. I really see a new dialogue between ports and shipping emerging. It's not just cyber pulling us together. It's the great work that you've done over the last decade. So thank you very much for giving us all a brief insight into the great work. And to our audience, thank you all for joining today. We're back at 11 a.m. GMT sharp. You've been part of an audience of 300 people today. And this is just the beginning as we build bridges between shipping and ports, work together, ask your questions, and looking forward to seeing you for the mental health session, which is a crisis that we'll be talking on with some world-leading experts tomorrow morning. So Cecilia, thank you very much. It's really appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.